It was a quiet night in New South Wales. The stars twinkled above, undisturbed. Clark Watson drove along the empty road, his mind on his next real estate showing. Suddenly, two bright lights appeared in the sky. They caught his eye, drawing his attention upward. These weren't ordinary lights. They moved in ways that defied explanation. Watson slowed his car, mesmerized by the aerial display. The lights twisted and darted with impossible speed. He pulled over to the side of the road, unable to look away. The lights continued their bizarre dance. Then, something even stranger happened. A massive shape emerged from the darkness. It was triangular, dwarfing the two lights that had first caught Watson's attention. The object's surface looked odd, almost alive. It resembled the scales of a snake shimmering in the night. Watson couldn't believe his eyes. He'd heard stories of UFO sightings before, but never imagined he'd experience one himself. The triangular craft hovered silently above the Australian landscape. It seemed to defy the laws of physics. Watson fumbled for his phone, desperate to capture evidence of what he was seeing. But the craft moved with uncanny speed. By the time he had his camera ready, it had vanished into the night sky. The two lights remained for a moment longer. They performed one final, impossible maneuver before disappearing as well. Watson sat in his car, heart racing. He knew he'd witnessed something extraordinary. This encounter in February 2023 would change Clark Watson's life forever. He couldn't simply return to his normal routine. The real estate agent became obsessed with understanding what he'd seen that night. He scoured the internet for similar reports. Watson discovered he wasn't alone. Others had reported seeing similar craft in various parts of the world. He learned about MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. This organization dedicated itself to investigating such sightings. Watson felt compelled to join their ranks. He signed up as a volunteer field researcher, determined to uncover the truth. His experience that night in New South Wales had opened his eyes to a world of possibilities. Watson couldn't ignore the implications. If such craft existed, where did they come from? Who or what was piloting them? These questions consumed Watson's thoughts. He spent his free time investigating other sightings in the area. The snakeskin triangle, as Watson came to call it, wasn't an isolated incident. Others had seen similar objects. Watson interviewed witnesses, carefully documenting their accounts. He looked for patterns, searching for clues. Some dismissed his newfound passion as foolish, but Watson knew what he'd seen that night was real. The impossible maneuvers, the massive triangular shape, the snake-like surface, it all defied conventional explanation. Watson's work with MUFON gave him a sense of purpose. He felt he was contributing to a greater understanding of these phenomena. Each new report added another piece to the puzzle. Watson meticulously cataloged every detail. He learned to recognize the signs of a credible sighting. Not every strange light in the sky was unexplainable, but some, like the craft he'd witnessed, simply couldn't be dismissed as conventional aircraft or natural phenomena. Watson's investigation led him to question much of what he'd previously believed about the world. If such advanced technology existed, what else might be possible? He began to look at the night sky differently. Every star held the potential for mystery and discovery. Watson's friends and family noticed the change in him. Some worried he'd become too obsessed with his UFO research, but Watson couldn't let it go. The memory of that night in February 2023 was seared into his mind. He knew that, somewhere out there, the snakeskin triangle still flew. Perhaps it would return to the skies over New South Wales. Watson vowed to be ready if it did. He kept his camera close at hand, always prepared for another sighting. Months passed, and Watson's dedication never wavered. He continued his work with MUFON, investigating reports across Australia. Each new account reminded him of his own experience. The excitement, the disbelief, the lingering questions. Watson knew that most people would never believe without seeing for themselves. He couldn't blame them. If he hadn't witnessed the snakeskin triangle with his own eyes, he might have dismissed such stories as well. But now, Watson was a true believer. He'd seen something that defied explanation, something that challenged his understanding of reality. He often thought back to that night on the lonely road, the way the lights moved with impossible agility. The sudden appearance of the massive triangular craft, its surface shimmering like living scales. Watson wondered if he'd ever see anything like it again. Part of him hoped he would, while another part feared that very possibility. What if next time the craft didn't simply observe and depart? What if it landed? What if its occupants emerged? These thoughts both thrilled and terrified Watson. He knew he was delving into the unknown, challenging accepted truths, but he couldn't turn back now. The snakeskin triangle had opened his eyes to a wider universe. Watson continued his work, documenting sightings and interviewing witnesses. He became known in UFO research circles. His account of the snakeskin triangle became a touchstone for other researchers. They sought his insight on similar cases. Watson never claimed to have all the answers. He simply shared what he'd seen and encouraged others to keep an open mind. He knew that somewhere out there, beyond our understanding, incredible things were happening. The snakeskin triangle was proof of that. Watson's life had been forever changed by those few minutes on a February night. He'd glimpsed something extraordinary. Now, he dedicated himself to unraveling the mystery. He knew it might take a lifetime, but he was committed to the search. For Clark Watson, the truth was out there, and he'd seen a glimpse of it in the skies over New South Wales. The snakeskin triangle had vanished that night, but its impact remained. It had set Watson on a new path, a path of discovery, of questioning, of seeking answers to the unexplained. A path that led to the stars and beyond. Watson knew he might never fully understand what he'd seen that night, but he would never stop trying. The memory of those lights, those impossible movements, that massive triangular craft, it all drove him forward. Watson looked to the night sky, wondering what other mysteries it held, what other incredible sights might be waiting to be discovered. He knew that somewhere out there, the snakeskin triangle still flew, and perhaps, one day, it would return. Until then, Clark Watson would keep watching the skies, ready for the next encounter with the unknown. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notification.